dear ghouls and fiends, I have returned. After a brief rest in the shadows, I'm back to bring you brand new horror stories exclusively on Chilling. And trust me, things are changing. We're entering a new era of Chilling. More stories, more voices, more terror. And to kick it off, Chilling is doing something special. We're giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 bundle with Mario Kart, and every subscriber is automatically entered to win. Want to boost your chances? Well, leave a review, share your thoughts, show your support. The details are in the description. Remember, I'm back and the darkness now runs deeper than ever. Sleep tight. It's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink. And listen. Zombie Outbreak, Chicago PD, by Augustus Cordoba. Part 1. It's messed up how fast your brain rewires itself. 1 second you're flinching at the blood smeared across the tiles. Next thing you know, you're stepping over it like it's nothing. Like it belongs there. This place used to be a police station. Now, it's a crypt with busted lights that flicker like dying stars, glass crunching underfoot, and every so often a scream echoes down the corridors. Far off, hopeless. I move like a ghost through the halls, littered with overturned chairs, shattered lockers, and cold, dead silence. This was once the heart of law and order. Funny how I feel safer in here than I ever did outside, where those things run wild, sprinting through the streets like rabid animals. Well, I've lost track of time. A day, maybe 2 since the world turned inside out. A lifetime ago, I was someone else entirely. Dan Marino, career screw-up. Well, I was small-time, boosting wallets on the L train, grabbing cash registers when the clerk turned their back, slipping past window latches in neighborhoods that still believed in locking doors. Nothing flashy, nothing worth headlines, just enough to keep myself fed, high and 1 step ahead of the gutter. Then came the job. A local fixer named Rico had eyes on a pawn shop in South Ashland. Nothing special on the surface, but word was it fronted for a stash house. Supposedly behind the racks of fake Rolexes and beat-up guitars, there was a vault. Not a real-deal bank vault, more like a reinforced back room stacked with dirty cash, pills, and unregistered handguns wanting to move. Well, the job was simple. In and out, 2 minutes tops. Grab what you can, don't get fancy. I wasn't even supposed to go in. Just play lookout, hold the car. When the crew bailed last minute, one got spooked, the other shot up and vanished. Well, I saw an opening. Greed can feel a lot like courage when you're desperate enough. I went in alone. Used a tire iron to pry the back door open. Tripped over a sleeping pit bull on the other side and nearly lost a hand in the process. Shot it once, missed. The second shot landed. Well, that noise, it brought the neighborhood down like hell's own siren. Found the cash, found the guns, but the sirens were already closing in by the time I dragged the duffel bag back through the alley. I tripped an alarm, then a security camera, one I didn't even notice. Got a clear shot of my face under the flicker of a busted neon sign. Well, the cops were waiting 2 blocks away. Ran, slipped on wet asphalt, sprained my ankle. Tried to crawl through a storm drain but was hauled out by my collar like a stray mutt. Looking at 6 years, armed robbery, animal cruelty tacked on. Well, the real nightmare started when they came. Infected, raging, mindless. They stormed the station and tore everything apart. Plans didn't matter, mine, the cops, anyone's. Everything crumbled in seconds. Yeah, so maybe I should rewind a bit. All of you know the headline. Thief busted in pawn shop heist. Oh, you'll never understand what it means to walk these halls now. Peeking through the coats of the fallen, checking radios that crackle with static, hoping just once to hear a real voice. So, yeah, let me tell you how I got here. I wasn't looking to get rich. I had debts to bury. Dreams of buying a busted garage in Cicero and maybe, just maybe, getting out of the game for good. But fate doesn't give a damn about your plans. Like I said, some tiny silent alarm I'd overlooked tripped 5 minutes in. Chicago PT hit the scene like lightning. Barely had time to zip the bag shut before the front windows lit up in a mess of red and blue. Panic hit hard, and I bolted for the back. didn't make it. In seconds, I was face down on the pavement, cuffs biting into my wrists, half a dozen cops shouting over each other, all telling me not to move. I didn't. Next hour or so I spent parked on a cold steel bench inside the district station, not far from the loop. They brought me in with no lights, no sirens, just an unmarked car and a long, quiet ride south to the 1st District Precinct on South State. Normally the place would be buzzing. Friday night chaos. Drunks hauled in for brawls, pickpockets, trespassers, the usual downtown grind. You'd hear the clatter of keys, the occasional slamming of cell doors, radios spitting static, the hum of overhead fluorescents buzzing just out of rhythm with everything else. It had its own pulse. But that night, it felt wrong. The sky outside was a weird color, rose purple fading into fire orange at the edges. The air was heavy with something I couldn't name. Inside, the cops moved like they knew something was coming, like they were holding their breath. It turns out they were right. They had me down for an interrogation. Not just the pawn shop job, they wanted to hang a few unsolved break-ins on me too. I'd stirred up enough dirt in the past that they figured it'd stick. Toss me in a cell, lose the key, standard play. They stashed me in a cramped side office, and that's where I met Detective David Tennant. Silver hair, cold stare. Moved like he'd been doing this longer than most people stay alive. He asked questions with the precision of a surgeon. Not loud, not aggressive, just calm, focused. Like he already knew what I was hiding and just needed me to say it out loud. I cracked a few jokes. That's what I do. Talk my way out of panic. But Tennant wasn't playing. Didn't blink. Under normal circumstances, I'd have been buried by that guy. But normal was already gone. Midway through our little chat, the phone outside started ringing. Over and over. Tennant ignored it at first, and a young officer popped his head in, eyes wide, breath short. Said something fast. Emergency calls piling in, people going wild on the west side. Random assaults near Navy Pier. Maybe rabies or something worse. Tennant told me to sit tight, left me chained to the steel loop on the table and slipped out. Through the narrow glass window in the door, I watched the whole station flip. Cops running past, throwing on vests, grabbing riot gear, some shouting into radios. Others looked pale, like they'd seen ghosts. Then some siren or alarm I didn't recognize started blaring. Something internal, deep, urgent. Whatever was coming, it wasn't part of the manual. It wasn't the usual wailing siren you'd expect in a cop shop. This one was sharper, just a cold mechanical beep-beep over and over, drilling into your skull like it was trying to wake the dead. It set everyone on edge. You could feel the air shift. People snapped into motion like they'd trained for this moment their whole lives. And then the station started bleeding officers. Whatever was coming through 911 had to be bad. I mean, end of days bad. I caught words tossed around like full mobilization and all units, no exceptions. Cops poured out from both ends of the building, heading north, south, toward the lake, out to the edges of the suburbs. Something, or rather, some passengers had arrived at O'Hare International, flight coming in from LAX, and it acted like the outbreak of a plague. Well, the reports were insane. People were losing it completely. Some biting, others attacking. Total madness. A few of the least unruly had been brought here, from what I could gather. Those who stayed behind weren't the elite. They were the rookies, the green ones too fresh to be sent into the field, or the unlucky bastards stuck guarding detainees like me. I watched them barricade the front and side entrances, setting up makeshift perimeters like they expected hell itself to walk through the doors. I sat there at that steel table for what felt like a lifetime. Might have been an hour, maybe more. The overhead lights hissed and buzzed, flickering now and then. A radio in the corner kicked out bursts of static and stray words. Containment. Infected. Hold the line. Even with that tension crawling up the walls, it still felt safer in that locked room than anywhere else in the city. At that point, I was still more worried about how many charges they were going to hang on me than whatever was unraveling outside. And then the noise started. I couldn't see the hallway from where I was, but I heard it. Chaotic yelling, a phone shrieking off the hook, the crash of metal on tile. Something heavy, maybe an equipment cart, rolling or knocked over. And then, nothing. Just a thick, unnatural silence that swallowed everything. My mind started spinning. Had one of those rabid freaks made it inside? Was it a fight? A detainee gone berserk? A scream tore through the quiet, muffled, raw, followed by swearing, people yelling for backup. The door slammed. More screaming. Then I heard boots pounding the floor, someone running hard, stumbling. Another scream, cut off like a power line snapped. If my legs had been free, I would have kicked the table off its bolts just to get a look at what the hell was happening, but they had me locked in tight. So I started searching, scanning every inch of the room for anything that could help. That's when I remembered. I'd hidden a tiny metal pick in a slit in my belt, tucked so well I figured even a thorough search wouldn't catch it. Maybe they missed it in the rush. Maybe they never looked. It didn't matter. It was my first break of the entire night, and I wasn't about to waste it. With enough twisting and straining, I managed to drag the belt around so the hidden seam faced forward. I yanked my wrists up as far as the cuffs let me and ran my fingers along the underside until I felt it, the cold, slim shape of the pick. My fingers closed around it. Game on. It was my first time picking cuffs, but that didn't make it easy, especially not while chained to a ring bolted straight into the damn table. My arms were bent in ways they weren't meant to be, my shoulders burning, my back locked into some twisted ankle. Every time I thought I had it, another sound echoed from the hallway. Heavy crashes, sickening thuds that made my skin crawl. The lights above me stuttered and flickered, and for a heartbeat I thought everything was about to plunge into darkness. But I kept working, kept scraping the pick into place, ignoring the sounds outside, ignoring the fire in my joints, and then the latch gave. I was loose. I stood, slow and tense, and moved to the tiny reinforced window. Shadows shifted in the hallway beyond. Bodies moving. But under that stuttering, dirty light, I couldn't tell who or what they were. Cops, detainees, something else. The screams had stopped now, and it was all wet. Sick noises, gurgles, tearing, that awful slurping kind of silence that fills the air after something awful has happened. Gunshots rang out now and then, sporadic and desperate. Either someone was still fighting, or it snapped completely. My pulse was a jackhammer in my chest, but I shoved the fear down deep. Panic wouldn't save me, movement would. I crept to the door. The handle turned smoothly, no lock from this side. I cracked it open an inch, and that's when the smell hit hard. Like rust and rot and death. Copper slick blood and weeks-old garbage, thick and choking. The stench curled in through the crack like a living thing. I gagged. My eyes were watering, my throat burning, but I didn't stop. I pushed the door open wider and stepped out. The corridor was half lit, half shadow, fluorescent lights blinking in a broken rhythm that made everything twitch and warp. Shapes were scattered along the floor. Told myself not to look. I looked anyway. Uniforms, civilian clothes, limbs twisted wrong, blood soaked into the tiles. Right by the door, an officer lay crumpled on his side. I recognized him, barely. I'd seen his face earlier, back when they were booking me. Now his mouth hung open in a permanent gasp, eyes wide and blank. His uniform was shredded like something had clawed straight through it. I tore my eyes away. Survival would come first. Farther down the hall, another figure, face down, unmoving. Then, somewhere deeper in the building, a crash, a loud one. Like a row of lockers were tipped over. Whatever it wasn't over, and I wasn't safe yet. I heard it then. A dry, dragging shuffle that slithered down my spine. Then a whimper, human, weak. It ended fast, cut off like a wire snapped. It was just gone. In any other situation, my first move would have been to arm myself. I didn't want to check the bodies, didn't want to get that close, but I didn't have a choice. It didn't take long to spot a holster lying near the downed officer. The gun, Glock 19, was still inside. I'd handled Glocks before. Comes with the territory when your work involves crossing lines and picking locks. I slid it out slowly, carefully. Magazine was full, one in the chamber, safety on. Kept it close, tight in my grip, trying not to drown in the reality slowly sinking in around me. Part 2. The station's layout was cookie-cutter. Lobby up front, corridor splitting off into offices, interrogation rooms, and the detention wing. Another hall curved off to staff lockers and the evidence room. I made for the lobby. If there was an exit, it'd be there. If not, I'd figure out what came next. I moved slow. Every footstep calculated, eyes constantly sweeping, ears straining. The radios had gone quiet now, nothing but dead static. Phone still rang in the distance, unanswered. Some forgotten terminal beeped now and then, a hollow sound in the void. I passed a cluster of holding cells. The bars on most were wide open. One still locked. From inside I heard movement. Something slow. A shuffle. Well, I didn't stop. I didn't want to see what was locked inside. Curiosity is a death sentence when the world's gone sideways. So I crept past and pushed deeper toward the front desk. The whole walk I was followed by a soundtrack of distant dread. Thuds, dragging sounds, the scuff of something unnatural. Every so often a sharp burst of footsteps would echo from a hallway I hadn't cleared, and every time it happened my grip on the Glock tightened. Eventually, I reached the door to the lobby. It had a narrow glass pane, but something on the other side blocked most of the view. I leaned in slowly and cracked the door open just enough to see. And I froze. Bodies sprawled across the lobby floor like broken mannequins. Some wore the navy blue of CPD. Others, street clothes, civilians. The front reception desk was flipped over on its side, its polished wood splintered. The glass entrance was in ruins, jagged shards stuck in twisted frames like teeth. Whatever happened in there had been fast and violent. Whatever caused it might still be inside. A few of those things were still in the lobby, twitching like puppets with snapped strings. Their movements weren't slow or clumsy. Every step was a jolt, like their muscles were locked in a constant seizure. And they were fast, too fast, not like the shambling corpses you'd expect from old horror reels. These bastards moved with purpose, violent, jittery purpose. One of them turned, sudden and sharp. Its clothes hung in rags. There was still enough left of the shirt to see it had once been a cop's uniform, but the sleeves and chest were shredded to hell. His face was twisted, eyes wide, jaw slack and stained with dried blood. As soon as it saw me, it let out a hiss that rattled like broken glass. And then it charged. Closed the gap in seconds. I barely had time to raise the Glock. My hands were trembling, but I pulled the trigger. Muzzle flash tore through the dim light. The thing dropped, its body crashing into the overturned reception desk behind it. Something deep in my gut screamed at me to run, to hide, but I stayed locked in, focused. The noise had drawn the others now. And two more twisted shapes snapped their heads in my direction. Then they came. Not creeping, not stumbling, but sprinting. I fired again and again. Each shot echoed like thunder in the hollow space. The first one collapsed mid-charge. The second dropped just short of me, sliding across the tile like a sack of meat. And then, silence. Awful, stifling silence. Only the flicker of broken lights and the smoke curling from the barrel of the Glock reminded me this was real. I turned my eyes toward the doors, what was left of them. Through jagged shards of glass, I saw the outside world. Chicago's skyline still glowed in the distance, casting a surreal light over the chaos. Cars were scattered across the street, some with doors flung open, headlights still burning. Further out, shadows darted between vehicles. I heard distant street sirens, more than one, all from different angles. God, it was a war out there. I couldn't stay, but heading out there on foot, that was a gamble too. And I spotted it. A cruiser parked crooked just a few feet from the front steps, engine still running. Driver's door open, swaying in the breeze like it was calling me. Well, that was my shot. I didn't wait. One last look over my shoulder, clear for now, and then I burst through the wrecked glass doors and into the night. The air outside hit me like a wall, thick, humid, charged with tension. Every breath felt too loud. My boots crunched through shattered glass as I moved, Glock up, sweeping the street left and right. The cruiser was right there. All I had to do was reach it. Inside, the police radio hissed with broken chatter, ghost voices trying to push through static. The headlights carved through the dark, sweeping over the dead streets. I slid behind the wheel, slammed the door, and locked it down. The dashboard glowed a dull orange, systems humming quietly. I dropped the Glock into my lap, fingers fumbling over the steering column, hunting for the gear shift. A standard issue Ford, wired for lights and sirens. I jacked enough cars to know the layout by heart. But this one was already idling, no hot wire needed. I shifted into drive, the wheels stiff and cold in my grip as I eased the cruiser forward, weaving through the metal graveyard of stalled-out vehicles. I kept it slow. Silent movement felt safer than speed. Noise was a beacon. Chicago was crumbling in real time. Storefronts shattered. A city bus sat cockeyed in an intersection, hazard lights clicking uselessly. Shadows darted everywhere, some screaming, some twitching and sprinting like marionettes on frayed wire. Got a glimpse of a lone cop unloading a shotgun into one of them, his target rushing fast, too fast. The muzzle flash flared, painting everything in bursts of firelight. But I didn't stop. No detours. Survival was the only game now. The old me might have ducked out quietly, melted away into the alleyways. Not anymore. Instinct told me to find cover, grab gear and make a plan. I veered left, headed toward Michigan Avenue. For half a second, my brain flickered back to that old pawn shop I'd once tried to hit, like it might offer shelter. Pfft, dumb thought. That place wouldn't hold back a broom closet's worth of hell. Instead, I turned west, skimming past the black silhouette of the Willis Tower. Streets were mangled, wrecks blocking lanes, forcing me into tight turns and detours. I kept one eye on the road, the other hunting for sudden movement. I started calling them the infected now. Whether it was rabies, some parasite, or a weaponized virus, it didn't matter. All that counted was staying ahead of it. I tuned the radio, trying to catch something solid. Most channels bled together. Screams, gunshots, garbled calls for backup that would never come. Some voice with a badge was barking about setting up quarantine zones around the city's edge, ordering units to herd civilians there. But from what I was seeing on the streets, that plan was already dead. I had to stay sharp, think smart. Where the hell was I going to go? Hospitals were already war zones. Cops? They were the first to drop, ironically. Maybe the suburbs, maybe not. Could be peace, but could be a death trap crawling with the infected. A warehouse crossed my mind. Storage depot, something with locks and steel doors. Then I remembered Hoffman, old street contact, kind of guy you kept in your back pocket for dirty favors. Years ago, he'd offered me a safe place if the law ever came down on me. Tiny apartment block in Brookfield, near the zoo. I doubted he'd be thrilled to see me now, but we weren't living in then anymore. Well, the rules were gone. I decided to risk it. I kept moving, snaking through Chicago's battered streets, headlights cutting through smoke and shadows. Here and there I caught flashes of hell, shattered buses with movement inside like something was still fighting to escape. A diner frozen in time, bodies slumped in booths, others twitching on the tile like spilled meat. Lights flickered overhead, throwing wild dancing shapes across the ground. The deeper I drove, the more the city felt like a coffin. Then, someone pounded on the cruiser's window. I jerked the wheel and nearly plowed into a mailbox. A woman, ragged clothes, blood on her arms, panic carved into her face. She was screaming at me through the glass. Behind her, a shape sprinted like an animal let off a chain. Well, I didn't hesitate. I reached across and popped the lock. She dove in just as I slammed the gas. The thing chasing her slammed against the cruiser, smearing something red and oily across the window. But we were gone. She collapsed forward, hands on the dash, gasping like she'd outrun hell itself. Her name tag caught my eye. Zhao Yu. Retail somewhere in the loop. Oh, her arms were cut up, but it looked like glass, not teeth. I kept my Glock resting in my lap just in case. She didn't seem infected, just wrecked. Hollow eyes like she'd seen too much already. After a minute, she croaked out, "You a cop?" I shook my head. "Nope. Found the cruiser, that's all." She nodded, barely caring. "What the hell's happening?" she asked, her voice breaking. I sighed. Wish I knew. People are snapping. Some kind of infection. The force is scattered. I'm heading west, looking for somewhere safe. Zhao Yu pressed her forehead against the glass, watching the ruins crawl by like ghosts. We didn't speak after that. The silence said more than words ever could. "God, it's everywhere," she muttered, and said it like she was trying to convince herself more than me. She'd been on a night shift when the emergency calls started pouring in, people on the street going feral, lashing out at strangers. Customers bolted outside to watch, and then the front windows exploded inward. That's when she ran. We all did. After that, words were scarce. No point in talking when survival is the only thing that matters. She noticed the Glock in my lap. Didn't flinch. Maybe it made her feel safer, or maybe she just didn't give a damn. Chaos does that. Burns away fear, leaves you numb and ready. We made our way to the edge of the city. The roads loosened up. Storefronts thinned. Houses got fewer and darker. Even with night draped over everything, the city still pulsed with flickers of life, random lights here and there. But some blocks were already drowning in black. During a lull, I pulled over in a half-lit alley to check the cruiser. Half a tank. I scanned the area, hoping for something better. Another car, a truck, anything. But everything was either gutted or abandoned. No dice. I gave the radio another shot. This time I caught something. Garbled chatter from the Illinois National Guard. The voice was thin, cutting in and out, but clear enough. Remaining officers were to steer civilians toward evacuation points. One was near the United Center, another further south. Sounded like a half-baked plan held together with spit and tape. I looked at Zhao Yu. She already knew. Crowds that side? One infected slips through and the whole place turns into a buffet line. We weren't about to gamble our lives on that. So we kept heading toward Brookfield. On the way, we swapped what scraps of knowledge we had. She'd seen how they moved. Fast, brutal, no fear, no hesitation. Like cornered animals with no survival instinct, only rage. Some of them dropped after a few hits, but others kept coming even when half their guts were spilled out. And one bite, that was all it took if the bleeding didn't stop, or if you didn't get clear. Dispatch had thrown out the word rabies early on, but this was too fast, too mean, too damn infectious for any rabies I had ever heard about. We circled the city, steering clear of main highways. They were either jammed up or crawling with whatever was left of the government. Neighborhoods slipped past, some still lit like nothing was wrong. I didn't stop, couldn't risk it. The deeper we drove, the quieter it all became. Silence didn't mean safety. It just meant the screaming had moved somewhere else. Part 3. Every so often a shadow darted across an empty intersection, and I'd hit the gas, pushing the cruiser a little faster. Eventually I turned into a quieter street, lined with tired trees. Brookfield was close now. I recognized the side streets, the run-down storefronts, an old bakery shuttered for the night, a small grocery with iron bars on the windows. What used to be this place felt calm. Now, it was wrapped in a slow-burning tension that clung to every corner like smoke. Hoffman's spot was in a 3-story brick apartment complex nestled beside aging single-family homes. I parked a block off, hiding behind thick hedges. The engine's idle felt loud, too loud in the dead stillness. I glanced over at Zhao Yu. She gave me a small nod, ready for whatever would come next. My plan was simple: get in, find Hoffman, hole up until we figured out the next move. The building's front door was locked tight. No problem, years of lockpicking came through again. A few seconds with my picks and the pins popped free. Xiao Yu stood watch, her eyes darting. Inside, the hallway lights flickered weakly, casting jittery shadows as we climbed 2 flights of stairs. Guns drawn. Well, mine was steady. Xiao Yu gripped a baton that she'd pulled from the cruiser's trunk, her hands trembling. The hallway was dead silent. I reached Hoffman's door. Knocked softly. No answer. Tried the knob. Locked. Another quick pick, and I was inside. The apartment was cold and stale, like someone had bailed in a hurry. AC still humming, windows left wide open. On the counter, a half-eaten sandwich lay wrapped in greasy deli paper. No dust, no signs of struggle, no blood. It was just empty. For a moment, I wondered if Hoffman had caught wind of this nightmare early on and taken off, maybe scavenging somewhere safer. Xiao Yu closed the door behind us without a sound. She spotted a laptop blinking faintly on the dining table. The screen showed an email, half-typed. Going south, too. Well, that was it. Hoffman must have left in a rush, trying to warn someone or maybe begging for help. The cursor blinked at us, cruel and empty. And with no other choice, we locked down there for the night. Found some canned food in the cupboards, soup, beans. Not much, but enough to keep us breathing for a while. The water still ran, though the pipes sputtered like they were on their last legs. We filled every container we could find, knowing the supply might vanish any time. And then, we stayed quiet. My head spun, replaying the hell I'd witnessed in the last few hours, chaos looping endlessly like a broken record. I could feel the same knot twisting in Xiao Yu's gut, though we never said it out loud. Both of us knew this was a new world now, one we didn't recognize and weren't ready for. I wish I could say the morning brought hope, but as the sun climbed, all it did was pull back the curtain on fresh nightmares. From the apartment windows, we watched the infected tear through the streets like wolves, sprinting after anyone still breathing. The roads were choked with stalled cars, some with doors left open, others smashed and stripped. The looters had been busy. Further off, smoke blared into the sky from downtown Chicago, 2 thick plumes twisting upward like broken promises. Every so often a chopper cut across the clouds, too far up to see clearly, but the thump of its blades had a sharp edge to it, like it knew exactly where it was going. Xiao Yu and I knew we couldn't last long without more supplies. That apartment was a temporary shelter, nothing more. We tore the place apart looking for anything useful. Dug up a half box of 45 rounds. Not helpful for my Glock, but maybe worth something in trade if we ran into anyone. Found a hammer, a multi-tool, and a roll of duct tape in a utility closet. Enough cleaning chemicals under the sink to rig up a half-assed disinfectant, though we had no clue if it worked on whatever this plague was. By midday, the lights were twitching, the power grid starting to fail. Then we noticed the front door to the building was ajar. Either someone got in or someone ran. The hallway was dead quiet, but from one of the ground floor units came the sound of furniture being dragged. A voice, low and hoarse. We didn't investigate, just backed off and climbed the stairs, pulse hammering in our ears. We weighed up our options then. Stay put, risk getting boxed in, or leave and face whatever waited outside. Neither path looked good. The longer we stayed, the more we realized this wasn't temporary. This was the new normal. Survival wasn't just about staying fed, it was about outlasting the horror. God, I kept seeing that damn station. Bodies scattered across tile floors, glass everywhere, and that first moment when the infected burst through like animals let loose. Looped in my head, over and over. Nights weren't quiet anymore. The screams always came. Distant, desperate. Sometimes gunshots, sometimes explosions. I jolt awake, my fingers gripping the pistol, eyes fixed on the door, waiting for it to be ripped open. Xiao Yu hardly talked now. Just stared out the window like she was watching for a storm on the horizon. Maybe she was. On the 3rd day, we decided to move. Couldn't just sit and wait to die. The plan was basic. Hit nearby shops, grab what we could, food, water, medicine if anything was left. We ditched the cruiser. It was too loud and too obvious. Moved on foot, hugging walls and ducking shadows. Eyes sharp, nerves frayed, and always listening for footsteps that didn't belong to us. The neighborhood looked like it had taken a direct hit, like the front line of a war zone. Doors dangled from twisted hinges, windows shattered into jagged mouths, and trash fires hissed in the gutters, casting greasy smoke into the air. Down the main road, a pack of infected hunted something or someone, I couldn't see, shadows sprinting like wolves in the distance. We kept to the back alleys, ducking behind fences, hugging walls, watching every window. Eventually we came across a strip mall, pharmacy, sandwich shop, and a convenience store lined up like three broken teeth. Well, the sandwich shop had already been torn apart, counters splattered with God knows what, glass crunching underfoot. The convenience store was wrecked too, but we scraped together a few dusty cans of fruit and some half-smashed water bottles someone had missed. It wasn't much, but it would stretch. Zhao Yu found a first aid kit tucked away in the back of the employee restroom. Still sealed. Small miracle. And then there was the pharmacy. Front doors locked down hard. Whoever had gotten in before us didn't want anyone else following. I pulled out my pick set and got to work, hands slick with sweat. Well, the lock fought me, but I fought back. After what felt like forever, it clicked. We eased the door open and slipped inside. The place was dim, lit only by a dying skylight overhead. Most shelves were bare, emptied in panic or looted clean, but there were scraps left. Gauze, aspirin, a few boxes of antibiotics behind the counter, enough to be worth the risk. And then we heard it. A sound, soft but sharp. Something moving just beyond the door to the back room. I froze, my hand tightening around the Glock. Then another noise, a low shuffle, like feet dragging across the tile. Glanced at Zhao Yu. She nodded once, gripped her baton tighter. I crept forward, gun raised, and nudged the door open with the muzzle. He stood there. A man, or what was left of one, in a ripped lab coat, skin pale and clammy, dead eyes staring through me. Blood leaked from a torn-up arm. Then it moved so fast, and it lunged, snarling, arms outstretched like claws. I fired twice, but it didn't stop. It slammed the door into me with the weight of a battering ram, pain tearing through my wrist as I staggered back. Zhao Yu surged forward, swinging the baton hard. It hit, but the thing barely even flinched. I let up one more shot, careful not to clip her. And this time it dropped, hard, crashed into the threshold like a sack of bones and blood. The echo of the gunfire rattled through the shelves, glass shaking and falling into tiny crashes. For a second, everything was still. And then the fear came creeping back in. I stepped closer, made sure it wasn't getting up. Well, it wasn't. We didn't say a word, just grabbed what we could, bandages, pills, anything that looked useful, and we ran. Out into the quiet, hearts pounding in sync with footsteps, the silence around us loaded like a trap waiting to spring. Outside, the afternoon sun beat down hard, gleaming off the jagged shards of broken glass, like some kind of warning. A few infected wandered near the main road, but they were too far off to notice us. We slipped down a side street and fell back to Hoffman's apartment. That night, we whispered in the dark about what would come next. Were we planning to hole up here forever? How long would the food last? Was there even a government zone still standing, somewhere we could actually get to? Every plan felt like a gamble, and outside the walls, the city was unraveling by the hour. Smoke curled into the sky from new fires. Gunshots popped off in the distance, and now and then a fighter jet screamed overhead. Probably National Guard, though God knows what they were doing. Sleep didn't come easy. Every time I closed my eyes, the memories surged up. Always in the police station, slick with blood. The wide-eyed looks of cops who never thought they'd die in their own damn building. Civilians, too. Just regular people stuck in the lobby for dumb shit like parking tickets or picking up a drunk friend, now twisted up on the tile floor like broken dolls. And me, the criminal in cuffs, walking free because the world outside collapsed even faster than my own screwed-up life. After a week in Brookfield, it was clear we couldn't stay. The neighboring apartments were getting hit. We heard doors being kicked in, the screams of people who thought they could outlast the plague until it came knocking on their doors. We weren't going to wait for that. At dawn, we'd move. We decided to head west, get out of the dense population zones. Maybe farmland, a small town, something easier to defend. The old police cruiser was still parked where I'd left it, but it was wrecked now. Windows shattered, tires knifed through. No way that was getting us anywhere. So we went on foot, sticking to alleys and back roads. Each of us carried a pack. I kept the Glock at my side, always in reach. Zhao Yu had knives strapped to her belt, plus the baton. We figured if we came across a ride, preferably something solid like a pickup or an SUV, we'd make our move. The next 2 days were a slog through ruined suburbs. Survivors passed on rumors like currency. Some said the National Guard had barricaded the major highways, turning people back to stop the spread. Others claimed a few communities had fortified big box stores or schools, setting up their own little kingdoms. But darker stories floated around too, about gangs carving out turf, raiding whoever was too slow to run. Well, we never stuck around to find out which ones were true. We kept walking, but every now and then my mind dragged me back to the beginning. Me cuffed to a chair in that interrogation room, hearing chaos building in the hallway, not knowing the whole damn world was already going under. The irony hit hard. If I hadn't got busted that night, I'd probably have been out there on the street when the whole damn thing erupted. Maybe trapped, unarmed, bleeding out in some alley. Funny how that arrest, the worst night of my life, had ended up saving it. On our third day pushing west, we came across a half-collapsed auto shop just outside Lagrange. The place had clearly been stripped clean by looters, but out in the lot sat a rusted old pickup. Doors swung open like it was just waiting for us, keys still in the ignition. Our front end was banged up, sure, but the tires were good. I slid into the seat, muttered a quiet thanks to whatever ghost had left this behind, and turned the key. The engine sputtered, choked, then kicked over with a low growl. Both exhaled, like we'd been holding our breath for a year. There were a couple of half-full gas cans in a busted shed out back. We siphoned off what we could, scanned the area for any shamblers, and then rolled out, keeping to the narrow, cracked back roads. We picked up an old paper map back at the pharmacy, and it became our Bible. Every major route was a no-go, too risky. If a road was jammed with wrecks or fenced off by the guard, we doubled back and tried another path. At one barricade near a crossroads, we came across a chilling scene. Dead National Guard units sprawled around their wrecked Humvee. Slammed against a lamppost, doors torn open, weapons scattered. No movement. No infected. Just silence and blood-soaked asphalt. Another brutal postcard from the end of the world. We kept moving, deeper into the rural sprawl, until the landscape opened up into miles of farmland. Fields rolled out in every direction, knee-high grass shivering in the wind beneath a brooding sky. Up ahead, a small farmhouse leaned against the horizon, barn door hanging off its hinges. A windmill lazily spun above it, creaking like an old, tired man. The house looked untouched, windows intact, no signs of a break-in. We pulled into the long gravel driveway, tires crunching loud in the stillness. Before stepping out, we scanned for movement. Nothing. I crept up to the porch, each board beneath me moaning in protest, and knocked. No answer. I tried the knob. It turned. Inside smelled like dust and old wood. Sunlight slashed through the blinds in beams thick with floating motes. The furniture looked frozen in time, like the family who'd lived here had just stepped out and never came back. We did a quick sweep. Clear. The kitchen held a few cans, some sealed water jugs. Most of the fridge stuff had gone foul, but we found a jar of peanut butter and one of pickles still sealed. In a back room, we hit pay dirt. An old gun cabinet locked. I jimmied it open. Inside sat a Remington 700, scratched but solid, with a few boxes of ammo beside it. Well, not much, but enough to keep us breathing one more night. I slung the rifle over my shoulder, a weird flicker of gratitude settling in. Armed now, and not just with hope. That night we decided the farmhouse could work, at least for now. We shoved furniture against the doors, left a back exit half clear in case we had to bolt fast, hauled the rest of our gear from the truck and lit a few candles. We didn't trust the power to stick around. The generator out in the barn was bone dry, so we made a silent pact to hunt for fuel if this place became our base for more than just a few nights. Part 4. Days bled into weeks. We scraped by raiding nearby farms and driving to the next town over, always on the lookout for untouched shelves or unlocked storerooms. The infected were around, always were. Lone stragglers, tight little packs drifting through the fields. They still ran when they saw us, but out here in the open, we had the space to see them coming. Oh, the rifle was a godsend. Kept us alive more than once. Still, the police station haunted me. I couldn't shake the memory. I wondered if any of the cops had made it out. Detective Tennant, calm and unshaken even then, or that rookie who'd poked his head in during my first round of questions. What about the others who'd been locked up? Some probably waiting on bail, some mid-interrogation. Were they left behind in those metal cells, screaming as the infected tore through the hallways? The thought twisted something in my gut. One evening, we sat on the porch watching the horizon. The sun sank low, bleeding orange across the farmland. I must have looked lost in it because Zhao Yu nudged me with a boot and said, "Hey, you keep drifting. What's eating you?" I gave a hollow shrug. I'm just thinking about how it all kicked off for me. The station. The station? She asked, her eyes narrowing. Yeah, I said, cracking a grim smile. I was cuffed when it started. Had a pick hidden in my sock. If they'd searched better, if I hadn't had that sliver of luck, I might still be in that cage when the walls came down. Zhao Yu nodded, thumbing the baton in her lap. Crazy, huh? How none of that shit matters now. Jobs, arrests, money. It's all just dust. We're all the same. Just try not to die. You said it, I muttered. Silence stretched between us. Not awkward, just heavy. The kind that settles in your bones. Wind stirred in the tall grass. Something moved by the barn, probably a raccoon, maybe a cat. But out here, even the quiet felt like it could break at any second. One wrong sound, one flicker of movement, and the whole illusion of safety would tear wide open. Fear crouched just beyond the edge of the candlelight, always waiting. After dark, it felt like something was watching, silent and patient. Well, we didn't stay holed up in that farmhouse forever. Word came drifting in from ragged travelers. The National Guard was trying to lock down a wider zone out near Gary, Indiana, supposedly building a perimeter. Some claimed it was holding. Others swore it had already been torn to pieces. The truth was anyone's guess, but even the faintest hope of a stronger group, real shelter, maybe some kind of order, well, we couldn't ignore it. Over the leaks, we got leaner, sharper. We moved quietly, carried only what we needed. Night watches were a given. If we got split up, hand signals would bring us back together. Zhao Yu rigged a makeshift alarm system around the property, fishing line and old tin cans. Her dad had taught her that trick on camping trips back when the world still made sense. I practiced with a Remington every day, snapping off quick shots at junk propped up in the fields. Got used to the weight of it in my hands. Well, our routine boiled down to one thing: stay alert, stay alive. Eventually, we made the call. One cold, brittle morning, we loaded the pickup. Supplies, rifles, Glock, spare mags. I topped off the tank using gas we'd siphoned from a dead neighbor's tractor. Zhao Yu and I stood on the porch a final time, staring out over the silent fields. The peace of those quiet nights felt like some weird dream now, out of place in a world drowning in chaos. Then I fired up the engine and we rolled out. No idea if we'd ever see that place again. We pushed farther from the ruins of Chicago. On the horizon, a grey smear of smoke still hung over the city like a curse. The suburbs fell away to open land, Flat, empty, exposed. Now and then we passed other survivors in dusty caravans, but no one stopped. All trust was dead. Strangers meant danger. Every so often we heard shots ring out in the distance, or the low thunder of trucks tearing down roads somewhere close. Didn't speak much, no point. We knew the truth. The infection hadn't stayed in the cities. It had spread like fire through dry grass. But we never made it to Gary. A pack of hollow-eyed refugees we ran into swore the perimeter had failed. Another wave of infected tore through the line like it was paper. They told us to head north, maybe Wisconsin. Some mentioned Iowa. Nobody really knew if anywhere was safe anymore, but still we kept going. What else was there to do? Years of running from the law had trained me well, always watching for angles, exits, danger in the dark. We stuck to forgotten back roads and farm lanes when the highways were blocked or too exposed. And life boiled down to a grim pattern. Move, scavenge, rest when you could. When supplies ran dry, I'd slip into whatever was left. Abandoned hardware stores, gas stations, barns. I'd pick the locks if I could, kick 'em in if I had to. Funny how the same skills that once made me a criminal were now the only thing keeping us fed and breathing. Out here, a locked door could mean salvation, or starvation. On the road, we kept running into more of them. Fast, rabid. They come sprinting out of dark alleys or over cracked parking lots, teeth bared, eyes wild. No matter how many times it happened, it still shook something loose in my gut. But Zhao Yu and I had learned. Stay calm, act fast. One clean shot, a sharp crack of the baton, and we'd disappear before more caught the scent. Sometimes we came across others, wounded, broken, barely clinging on. We'd toss them a bottle of water, maybe a can of soup if we could spare it. But we never stayed, not long, not anymore. Trust, that was well and truly dead, same as the cities. You couldn't take the risk, not when desperation made even the kindest faces turn savage. Yet I couldn't stop thinking about the station all the time. That damn station, it had split my life in two, before and after. Every time I kicked a door shut behind me or raised my weapon, that moment came flooding back. The glass shattering, the first wave crashing into the precinct lobby, my cuffs clinking open, me stumbling out into hell. At night I'd remember the ones in the holding cells, the junkies, the thieves, the lifers. Wonder who got out. Wonder if any of the cops made it. How many were torn apart trying to do their job. The truth is my past, as dirty as it was, had kept me breathing. Lock-picking, street sense. Reflexes honed from running my whole damn life. It all mattered now. Funny, right? The life that nearly ruined me was the one that had saved me when the world fell off its axis. But that place had left its mark. The infected officer's eyes when he lunged, the way his name tag caught the flickering light like some cruel badge of what we'd lost. That station showed me just how thin the line was between order and chaos, how everything can fall apart. Weeks then blurred into months. Zhao Yu and I drifted county to county. We hooked up with survivor groups when it made sense, trading food, sharing routes, comparing scars. Helped a crew fortify a community center in some forgotten town. But it never lasted. Sooner or later, someone got greedy. Someone snapped, or supplies just dried up. We met Tom in a ghost town, a nurse, off duty when everything had collapsed, traveling with his sister. He still had medical gear from his old clinic. He stitched Zhao Yu's leg when she caught it on some jagged rubble. In return, I showed him how to jumpstart a car with nothing but a screwdriver and nerve. That was the deal now. Skills for survival, lockpicks for stitches, a scalpel for silence. We never stopped moving. Hordes roared through like storms. Safe houses ran dry, and so we roamed. Wanderers, eyes always on the edge of the map, always looking for either salvation or the next threat. And through it all, every abandoned street, every bullet spent, every life spared or lost, I carried the weight of that night at the station. A constant reminder that everything can break. That I'd broken, and yet somehow I was still walking. Sometimes I think back on how twisted it all turned out. Life spent pulling small-time jobs, leading right into the biggest score of my career. I got sloppy, caught red-handed mid-heist, and hauled off to the station like every other dumb crook. And the world itself tore apart. Irony hit hard. The same apocalypse that buried millions broke the lock on my cage. No trial, no cell, just screams, blood, and chaos. My criminal past, once a death sentence, suddenly the only thing keeping me alive. I knew how to move quiet, how to take what wasn't mine, how to disappear. Of course, the guilt's still there. I've hurt people, stolen things that didn't belong to me, but guilt doesn't count for much anymore. Not when survival's all that's left. Doesn't matter what the law says. Well, there is no law. All that matters now is waking up tomorrow. If I've got to steal, lie, even kill to make that happen, so be it. If someone ever asked how I made it out of that station alive, really made it out, it wouldn't be a story you could ever tell over a campfire. It's a mess of flashes burned into my brain. But I'd start with this. Never assume the world can go to hell in a single night. Then I tell them about the moment the power flickered, the bars of fluorescent lights fading under the sound of shrieking infected, the station glass doors caving in, screams echoing off tiled walls. I remember fumbling with a gun, not even mine, my finger twitching on the trigger, each shot ringing like a gavel in a courtroom with no judge. I stepped over officers, uniforms soaked in blood, guns still holstered. They'd never seen it coming. Their sanctuary became a slaughterhouse. I was still cuffed when it started, locked in an interrogation room, eyes on the clock, not knowing these were the last seconds of the world I knew. One forgotten pick tucked in my boot turned into salvation. Funny, right? Came to rob a pawn shop, ended up stealing my own life back. Well, there's no grand takeaway here, no neat little message. Just the truth. Sometimes the only thing separating you from the grave is dumb luck and bad intentions. Now, I've lost track of how long it's been since the dead rose and the rules died. The seasons are shifting again, the air's colder, leaves turning amber and rust before littering roads no one drives anymore. Zhao Yu and I are pushing north. Heard whispers of a settlement near the Wisconsin border, a place that still has walls and watchmen. Might be a lie, might be suicide, but hope's a hard thing to kill completely. Every now and then we pass a weather-faded billboard or a busted newsstand. Headlines about high school football, corn festivals, promises from politicians whose names are long forgotten. They belong to a world that's gone, maybe forever. Gotta keep walking, keep driving, keep breathing, because I can, because I must. Because even in the ruins of everything, I've still got a choice. That's something worth fighting for. Well, that's my story. It ain't noble, and it sure as hell ain't clean. Wasn't the life I pictured the night I strolled into the pawn shop with a lockpick and a plan, but it's the truth. As true as anything can be when the rules of the world snap in half and bleed out in front of you. I've seen neighbors rip each other apart over scraps, watch institutions crumble like cheap drywall. Those infected things, they move like they've got jet fuel in their veins, faster than anything alive should. Well, if you're listening to this, it means I found a way to speak, to scroll it down, without getting ripped open in the process. Maybe I made it somewhere safe, some pocket of civilization, a fire pit, people swapping horror stories like old legends. Sometimes I think about that motto etched into the lobby of the Chicago PD, serve and protect. Those words still echo in my head whenever I picture the last hours inside that station. Cops held that line until the walls cracked and the sky fell in. But the truth, the city was bigger than them, and the outbreak was bigger than all of us. Me, I was just a crook, an opportunist who used to crack safes and dodge patrol cars. I survived by doing what I was always good at, breaking rules, slipping through cracks. The system tried to bury me in a cell, and I outlasted it. Well, that's true irony for you. So if there's any kind of message in this mess, it's that survival doesn't always come from the clean-cut or the well-prepared. Sometimes it comes from the shadows, from people like me. The hardest part is not letting the world turn you into something cold. As twisted as it sounds, I learned that from the cops who never got the chance to finish booking me. They could have left us in those cells, could have saved themselves. They didn't. I saw badges dragging civilians to safety while the walls shook. I saw perps and officers fighting side by side as the infected tore through the halls. And that's the image I carry when sleep turns on me. That moment when the lines blurred, when uniforms and rap sheets didn't mean a damn thing. Only survival did. That's how I like to remember it. That's what got me through the doors of that dying station into the chaos outside. That's what gets me through every door since, never knowing if I'm stepping into safety or a bloodbath. Maybe my past made me fit for this broken world. But this place, it's no heist. It's something meaner, something hungrier. It's not done with me yet. Maybe one day these things will turn around. Maybe we'll stumble into a cure, or the infected will burn out like dying embers. Maybe the scattered camps will stitch themselves into towns again, and those towns will grow into something like cities. Maybe the memories of that night inside that cursed station will finally fade. But deep down, I know better. That night's burned into me like a scar that never quite closes. That was the moment it all shifted. The night that I stopped being a petty thief and turned into someone who crawled through hell just to see another sunrise. So if you're ever out there, walking past some old, gutted farmhouse with chairs stacked against the doors, or if you spot a crumbling precinct, brass shell casings glinting in the dust, or even an abandoned squad car with busted-out windows, engine cold and silence thick in the air, maybe that was us. Or maybe it was someone else, someone like us, trying to hold the line for just one more night. Either way, tread like death's whispering in your ear. Because the infected, they're still out there. Still fast, still starving, still hunting. You don't want to be caught inside any building, cop shop or not, when they decide to crash the party. I learned that the hard way. So if you take anything from this, let it be this. When the screams start, when the shadows move, don't freeze. Don't stare. Don't hope someone else will make the first move. Run or fight, but do not stand still. Out here, hesitation isn't just a mistake, it's a death sentence. A cell might have held you back in the old world, but at least its walls were solid. Out here, nothing holds, nothing's safe, nothing lasts. I've been on both sides, locked up behind bars and locked in a precinct as the old world caved in. And I still don't know which one scared me more. At least jail has rules, but this is chaos, stripped of order, soaked in blood. So stay sharp, keep your ears open. If you ever end up in Chicago, or any place crawling with the fast ones, don't think a police station is safe just because it used to be. I learned that the second I stepped into the hallway and saw the blood smeared beneath flickering lights. Don't get lured in. If the doors are open and everything looks calm, it's probably already too late. Don't go inside. The dead are already there. My dear friends, I still hope that you're enjoying these zombie outbreak stories. Try not to do them all the time, but I love them, and I know that I've got quite a following just for the basis of these stories from among you. So thoughts, feelings, anything else you want to say in the section below the video. And don't remember to go and check out the Chilling app again. So been a while since I last recorded anything, but getting back to doing stories and stuff. You'll find a lot of my YouTube videos there as well. So if you're fed up with following me here, that is a really great alternative. Right, my dear friends, until tomorrow night when there'll be a podcast and then back here again on Wednesday, that is it for me. You'll stay safe out there and sleep well. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams. Bye-bye.